I'm Rich Murset. I'm conducting this interview. It's with Nanette, Murset, Nelson, and it's July 14th, 2023. We're at Rich's house, 372 West, 900 North in Laverton, Utah.
There we go.
Here
And
we
I'm
go.
happy to be here.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay, hi Nanette.
Hello, Rich.
I guess we know, no, tell them my relationship to you.
Oh my word. This Rich Murset. Now this is going to be a problem for the whole thing. I'm just really emotional. I always have been. That's been part of my problem in life, actually. And I'm a little hoarse. I mean, I'm emotional, but I'm not really this hysterical. This is just how it's going to be today. Rich is my youngest brother. He's man, we're starting off with the hard stuff. This is terrible.
Sorry, I didn't think that was a tough
You
one.
never dreamed this would be the hard part. Rich is my youngest brother. I was about 9 years old when he was born, and we were so excited that he was coming to our family. And we've just had a special relationship all these years.
Yeah.
So now let's move on to stuff that's not quite so emotional.
Okay.
Okay.
Now let's go back instead of when I was born, when you were born.
Oh, when I was born. Well,
where were you born, and what was the circumstances? Where did your parents live? And
Well, I was born in Southern California, in the San Fernando Valley, in a town called Glendale. And that's because that's near where my folks lived. They were married during World War II. And then my mom moved home with her family and worked with her dad in his dentistry office. My dad went overseas. They came back. They'd saved enough money to buy a little piece of property over in Sherman Oaks. And they built a home, and that's where I was raised all those years.
but they didn't live in that house when you were born, did they?
No, they lived over on Buena Vista, over
Okay.
in Burbank.
Burbank. Okay.
So
Okay, and you were born. What was the date of your birth?
March 30th, 1947, on a Sunday afternoon, I came into the world. Very much loved. They really, it took a long time for them to have me. I was their first, almost 5 years, and they just always made me feel special.
Yeah. Well, you are. Okay, so that's cool.
You
And-
didn't know this was going to be such. Well, we're going to do fine. We're going to get through this. Okay, we're going to be all right.
Okay, so what's your first memory?
My first memory was going to kindergarten over at Woodman Avenue.
Okay.
And I was petrified because I was a very, very shy child. Very nervous about everything. I was just a wreck all the time. But I remember taking my red lunch pail, and we went over to Woodman Avenue School, and I got started there.
And Woodman Avenue School is across the street from where, across the Woodman Avenue from where we lived on
Right.
Buffalo Avenue.
It was only a couple long blocks away.
And that school was torn down 50 years ago or something like that.
Yes.
But I'm a little bit curious because when I was my first day of school, Mom just sent me. You know.
Well, you seemed like a very capable kid.
But so did she? She walked. I assume she walked you over there.
You know, I don't remember the walk, but I can't imagine that I went by myself. Not like you. It was like, well, okay, Rich, go to school over at Dixie Canyon, and we'll see you after. And this poor little kid just had to walk off and go down to school all by himself.
Yeah, that seemed a little odd to me.
It was a
looking
little
back.
odd. Looking back, that was a little bit odd, I must admit.
Okay, well, did you enjoy school?
No, I did not like school very much. I did fine in school, but I didn't like being called on. I didn't like being put on the spot. Answer this question, come and do this. I could do it, but I didn't want to do it because it made me nervous. I was very, very shy.
But you were okay, but you gained friends.
Yes, I had friends. I had friends at school and then in the neighborhood, and then I had a group of friends from church that all went to different schools. We were all spread out.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So you would just say that your elementary school years were just a little stressful.
Just
But
a
still
little
good.
bit. But they didn't all take place in Southern California. We've got to throw this part in about, I grew up in 2 different places at the same time.
So did that start when you were in elementary school?
Yes, it started when I was like 4 years old.
Okay, so give us the little bit of background of why this occurred.
Why in the world did we go to Rexburg every summer for 10 years?
Rexburg, Idaho.
Rexburg, Idaho. My mom, Mary Murset, her mom, Vita Rainey, actually Vita Smart Webster Rainey, inherited, how many acres was it? I thought it was like 800.
About 800.
About 800 acres of dry farmland up on the Rexburg Bench. It was farmland. This is what all the early pioneer people did. They settled there, they farmed, and it was great soil. Anyway, when Grandma Rainey inherited this property, which was unusual for a daughter to inherit property, usually it was just the brothers and just the men. But she was fortunate. Her dad said, no, Vita, you're going to have property too. So then she got to thinking, well, who's going to run it? And that made the offer to my dad, Tom Murset, and my mom, Mary Rainey Murset. Would you like to come up and run the dry farm, wheat and barley, up in Idaho? And my dad had never even thought about being on a farm, and he thought, well, you know, that sounds pretty good. But the unique part about it was, we arrived in Rexburg in April, and we left in September. Every year for 10 years, between the years when I was like 4 to 14. So we were there for those crazy winters when the wind blew and everybody froze and their eyebrows got ice on them. And I mean, Rexburg's a rough spot. So we decided to do that. And so we rented our home in Southern California, 4622 Buffalo Avenue in Sherman Oaks, California. And we put a sign out front. I remember my mom taking this little sign, only about this big, for rent. They rented it for 6 months, fully furnished. The plates were in the cupboards. The sheets were on the beds. And we put a few personal things up high. And not one person stole anything. Nobody did any damage. For 10 years, we rented our house for the summer, April till September. And we packed up with our pregnant cats and whatever else we had, got into the, what did we have, a 57 Blue?
Woody.
Oh, we had a Woody. Oh, we had a
Station.
Woody. Oh, I wish I had a picture of that. A Woody wagon, you know, like the surfers have, and we have some really cool cars. Anyway, it took us about 2.5 days to drive from Los Angeles to Rexburg, Idaho. We rented an apartment in the basement of the Hills home, right downtown. We always live right downtown. And we would go back and forth. So when I changed schools every year, after the first year, the principal kind of knew I was going to show up in the office and say, well, Rich was too young. But Bill and I said, well, we're leaving again. We'll hold a spot for us in September or October. We're going to show up again. And so I changed schools 4 times a year. But I went back and forth to the same schools. And we had the same set of friends in California, and I had my same set of friends in Rexburg. So talking about the 2 of best worlds.
So did they think you were like a star or something?
No.
Who just travels and whatever?
No, that was before Facebook and all sorts of stuff. We were just these city kids that moved to the southeast Idaho, little farming town, and I loved it. It was the coolest thing. California was kind of during its golden years, and it was fabulous, and it was in the forefront, and everything was happening, and then we go up to Rexburg, and it was just a totally different world. And I love both worlds.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of cool. So there's a lot of good stories to that.
So you had twice as many friends. You
Oh,
had
actually, I guess I did.
California friends and Idaho friends.
Idaho friends. And it was just so different. But we went camping. When Daddy would have things planted, he would plant in the fall, and then the snow would cover the crop all winter, and then the spring wheat would come up, and then we would hope and pray that when it came time for harvest, it wouldn't hail and flatten everything and lose it all. My dad would have nightmares of holding the ceiling up. Please don't let it hail. Don't let it hail. We need to get this crop in. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But we had a really good time.
So what did you like about it? You didn't go fishing.
No, we didn't fish, but we did go boating and we went camping. We would go to Yellowstone, at least twice a summer because it was just up the road.
Yeah.
We loved to go up to Island Park and we went boating. We had a little dinky boat and it was very humble.
You fed the bears white bread and stuff
Yes,
like that?
all those things you can't do anymore. We did that. My mom would have a paper sack from the grocery store, and we would put bears, and we put buffalo, and we put different things, and we count them, and we see them alongside the road, and it was just a lovely place to be. Both places in those eras. That was the 50s and the 60s. Really nice time. Just a hopeful time.
So did they rent a house, or did they buy a house, or what did they do up in Idaho?
For many years, we rented the basement of the Hills. That was the name of the family. And actually, it's kind of interesting why so many homes in Rexburg had basements. And when Rexburg was first developing, Rick's College was there, and they wanted all the farm kids to be able to come to the city in the winters and go to college. And so they asked people to build their homes with a separate entrance to an apartment, a basement apartment. A couple bedrooms, a bathroom, a family room, and then half that would be probably for storage for the people. But that's how a lot of homes are built, so these kids had a place to live.
Yeah.
So we took advantage of that. We did that for many years, and then very close to the end, we bought a home just across the street and down a block. And then they had that big terrible flood, and it took out our house. The Teton Dam broke, remember that?
So when after they bought that house, did they rent that house out for the winter to somebody?
No, we just closed it up. We
Oh.
only did that a couple years.
Because who'd want to be in Rexburg in the winter?
Who would want to go to Rexburg in the winter? I don't
Okay,
know.
well, what? So, if you recall, what did this happen? This went on like that until you were 15.
14, 15-ish.
Okay, so and what happened? What happened that changed that pattern?
Well, we had to decide where do we want to be, because these kids are us, me, Bill, and then you coming along. We can't change schools 4 times every year anymore. That we could do that in elementary school, but once I started junior high, we had a meeting. I think the only family meeting we ever had, actually. We need to decide: do we want to make our permanent home in Rexburg, or do we want to go back to California? And I think my mom and dad knew exactly what we were going to do anyway, but they kind of asked us what we thought. And very quickly, the decision was made: let's go home to California. That's where my mom's parents were, my dad's parents were. That's really where we were from. And then we went home, and that's where we've stayed ever since.
And I think also another factor in that was the well was drilled on the property,
Yes.
which made it then you wouldn't dry farm, you would do potatoes or some other irrigated
with well
crop.
water and irrigate.
And that means you kind of have to stay there all year.
Yes.
And I don't think Mom was ever excited about. She says, "Why would I stay in Idaho all winter?" You know?
Right.
I'd rather. She's a California girl.
No, but what you said was changing crops and digging wells. That changed everything. And my dad did great with the dry farming. He built a big Quonset hut, one of the first ones up on the bench. Everybody else just left their equipment out in the fields. And my dad said, "That is ridiculous. They're going to get rusty and ruined." So he built one. And everybody thought, "Oh, maybe we should protect our equipment." I don't know about those farmers. But anyway, we were not up to learning about potato farming and being there all the time. So we just said, "Hey, it's been great knowing you. We're moving off." And we left.
And
we went to
ultimately,
California.
that farm was leased to Gary Ball, who ran it for decades.
Yes.
And then he ended up buying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Eventually they sold the farm to Gary Ball. He was a very good man and a good farmer.
So that takes you into your junior high school years. Where did you go to junior high?
Robert A. Milliken, just not too far from us. I was close enough I could walk. I went up to Milliken. first year it had opened, brand new school, and that turned out to be fine. I worked in the health office and the bookstore, and I was coming out of being really shy, just getting into being not very confident. But I functioned pretty well. I wasn't a weird kid. I was just nervous.
Yeah.
I was just a little apprehensive about things. And then
Was there anything during that Millikan year that just stood out to you? Or it was just pretty uneventful?
I decided to stay after school and play girls' athletic sports. I like sports. And
So
GAA, Girls Athletic Association or something. And I stayed late several days a week, and that was fun.
What did you play?
Oh, volleyball and basketball and I don't know. The one thing I didn't do well though was running around that dumb track. I would get the worst side aches. I was just, see, once again, I was just a nervous wreck. I would forget to breathe. And you can't keep running and not breathing. It was awful. So just regular stuff. And then it was time to go to high school. And another brand new high school in the valley, Ulysses S. Grant. And they had the worst colors and the worst reputation. It wasn't the cool school.
Brown and orange.
Oh, it was brown and orange. It was so terrible. And the cool school, of course, was Van Nuys High School. Their colors were red and gray. They had all the good athletes. It was much more fun. So I went kind of this nerdy high school. But it turned out just fine. I did fine. Too chatty, huh?
Okay.
Got to tighten this up.
No, that was great. So I assume the makeup was similar to when I was there, which half of the school was Jewish. Did you have that?
Yes,
same
and
experience?
all the Jewish holidays were observed.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
I thought that was interesting.
So, so what did you like about high school, or?
They had the best noon dances, and there was a kid from church, Dennis Williams maybe. There were only like 3 of us LDS kids in the whole high school, and he was a great dancer. And when they had these noontime dances, and we would go dance, it was so fun.
And were they outside or in the gym?
Just in the gym.
Yeah.
It was just a half an hour worth of some rock and roll fun, modern music, and I don't know. It was just kind of fun. I worked in the bookstore and worked for the finance manager there and did the books and sold stuff and.
Now, just out of curiosity, knowing that you're shy and reserved, how did you end up doing those things? You wanted to?
I wanted to. I was interested in those kind of things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just like that. What else did I do in high school? I don't know. It went along just fine. It was a big school, a lot of kids. Graduated.
Did you say what it was called? Ulysses S. Grant?
Yeah, up in Van Nuys, up on Oxford, Oxnard, I think it was.
Yeah. Okay. So good. So, what was a typical summer like during those teen years?
During those kind of teen years, well, one thing I did is I babysat a lot. I was very popular because I was kind of like a mother's helper sometimes. Like the mom would leave and go grocery shopping, come home, bring all the groceries, and I put them all away. I would do the dishes. I would do the laundry. I would iron for her. I would watch the kids. And then when I got old enough to, and I charged 2 or 3 times more than anybody else.
What did you charge?
Oh, I don't know,
$2
$2 an hour
yeah.
or something, as opposed to 75 cents or something way back in the day.
Yeah.
But what really was a good idea is I could babysit for single moms that were maybe going to college at night, and they would come home, and then they couldn't leave a sleeping baby to take me home, so I could drive myself home.
Oh.
So that became very, very popular. Like, we've got a sitter that can come and get herself home.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did a lot of babysitting and that kind of stuff. And
what you were driving? What were you driving?
oh my word, that car! My dad, when I was turning 16, and my dad didn't say much about anything. But all of a sudden, I'm turning 16 and he brings home this car he thought I would just love. Well, no one had ever seen one like it. It was a Nash Metropolitan, turquoise and white. It was as big as this chair.
It's a cartoon-looking car.
That's right. It looked like a cartoon, like it was silly. Like you'd drive it in the circus and 40 people would jump out of it. It was the most bizarre. It was cute. And here I'm just coming out of my shell of not being so, I don't want anybody to notice me, because I never felt like I fit in. I always thought I looked different, I didn't fit in, and I'm just starting to blossom. And then my dad gets me this car. Everybody said, what is that? We've never seen a car like that. And then I just got confident, I just thought, hey, isn't it just the coolest car you've ever seen?
That was a stick, wasn't it?
Oh, it was on the column.
Three on the tree.
Yeah, 3 on the tree. And the clutch would stick, and I'd have to take my toe and pull it up, and I was a good driver, and I was confident, and I took off, and that was my car. And you could pick it up. I think
everybody knew it was you.
There was no doubt about it. It was me, because no one had ever seen a car like that. So anyway, I had a car. I don't know. Then Rich was growing up a little bit, and he'd hang out with me. He'd go to the beach and do things with me, or wanted to go someplace, and we just had fun.
Now, so now we're in your later teen years.
Yes.
You have any boyfriends? You had.
I did have boyfriends. I liked having a boyfriend, and I had some really nice ones. So that was good. Yeah. And they liked you besides. So you would tag along. We would haul you around places. That was good.
That was nice. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I knew you did.
Yeah, they all seemed like nice enough guys. And
yeah.
So did you ever feel like getting attached to any of these guys, or just basically it was just fun?
No, I would go steady with somebody for a while, and then you kind of just let that fizzle out, and then somebody else, and nobody really broke my heart or anything. I was more comfortable and more outgoing then. I kind of came out of my shell, I guess. And yeah, that worked out really well.
So during these later teen years and before that, what was your church experience?
Well, we went to the Sherman Oaks ward. First of all, they had to build a chapel finally. We were renting a place over on, I don't know, Van Nuys Boulevard in Sepulveda or something. And there was a close group of friends, but we didn't live close to each other. We all went to different schools, but they were close friends, and we did all that kind of stuff. Went to Mutual. That's another fun thing. During the week, we'd go to Mutual, and then we'd have a dance. And we had to push all the benches to the side, and we'd make up this gym, and we all had fun.
Yeah, that was the one on Van Nuys Boulevard. The chapel and the gym were the same
room
space.
Yes, they were. Then I think they turned it into a synagogue when we sold it.
Yeah, I think something like that.
So church was good.
So that's when you had the primary classes were called, they weren't.
Sunbeams and they think they still call it.
Not Maya Maids. That was young women.
I mean the young women's age stuff. It was the Beehives.
Yeah.
And the My Maids and the Laurels, and that has changed and progressed over the years in big ways.
Did they have girls' camp?
Yes. Actually, I went to one that I remember very carefully, or not carefully, but clearly. It was the same camp that our dad went to. It was a YMCA camp up in the Los Angeles mountains. And our dad went there like 40 years before I went there. His name was the same thing. I think the mattresses on the beds were the same all that time. So I went to girls' camp, but I just had fun. But I was apprehensive. I was a little nervous. Am I going to fit in? Is it going to be okay? And then it always turned out to be fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Did you feel like you were supported by your parents?
Yes, always. I always knew my dad would do anything that I needed or that I wanted. And then my mom, of course, is very supportive also. Whatever I was involved in, that was great. I did different things in Idaho. I took ballet up there. And I'm not a dancer. I found out I'm not a dancer. And then I found out also taking piano lessons. I'd have to walk down the highway to get to the piano in Rexburg. Rexburg was a small town. And I would go there and I would practice and I would play. And then I went to California to this real fancy teacher that scared me to death. And very quickly, after a couple years, I realized I'm not a piano player. I'm not musical. I'm trying to do these things. It's not me. So let's forget about that and let's focus on things I'm good at.
Yeah. I'm a lot of things, but
I'm not
a
that.
dancer and a pianist.
And I am not a singer, a dancer, or a pianist.
But you still can play Silent Night.
I
Right?
can, the same one. And my one recital song I can still play. It just wasn't in me.
Yeah.
Those are gifts that you're given. And unfortunately, I didn't get those gifts.
Is that why they bought the piano?
Mom thought she wanted to play. Our mom.
Uh-huh.
And she thought, I should learn to play the piano. So she took lessons.
Oh, okay.
But she wasn't any more talented than I was. So,
From Cleo Simons.
so we had this lovely piano. Sorry about me being hoarse. But no, we didn't turn out to be musical people at all. And that was fine. Once you wrap your mind around that and you figure, well, that's just not going to be me. So what?
That happened to me too.
Oh,
I
good.
said, I'm going to try this. Nope, that's not me. I can't do that. And so
And then
we'll
we move on. We just moved on when we figured things out. So,
Okay,
that
so
was
now you, I'm curious, was graduating high school a big thing for you?
No, it really wasn't. It's like where we lived in our community, everybody graduated from high school. It wasn't like, oh, this is the first one in the family and have a big party. I think we just went up and went to the ceremony, came home, and that was the end of that.
That was my same experience. I thought everybody graduated from high school, and it wasn't a big deal.
And you didn't have a big, huge party, and
No.
now it's so different.
Yeah,
No.
anyway. Okay, so you get through any other high school, junior high experiences that you feel prompted to tell us
No,
about?
everything went along rather smoothly.
Okay. So now you've graduated.
And then I decided I should enroll over at Los Angeles Valley College.
Okay.
That was right close. I was also working for Flair Modeling, which is a modeling school over on Ventura Boulevard. Just one lovely woman ran it, and she liked me, and I would teach classes to young girls, wanting kind of a finishing school kind of idea.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a while. When I was in high school, I also did a 4-4 work program, and I worked as a dental assistant for 4 hours, several days a week, and went to school for 4 hours. So I got credit for that, had that exposure.
But it wasn't with your grandpa, or was it?
No, this was just with somebody else over across the street from Vaughn's in a dental office, part of a school program.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'd like to probably be a dental assistant or hygienist or something.
Yeah.
And then, so I had that experience. And then I got a job. I did some freelance modeling that I didn't like at all, because I didn't like going different places and sitting around and visiting with these ridiculous girls, waiting for something to happen. And they wanted to be starlets or do something. I wasn't interested in that at all. I like business things.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to work for a company that was creative and produced and marketed. And anyway, so I got a job with RD Sportswear, ARDEE Sportswear, downtown Los Angeles. That, I worked there for a couple years or more. I loved that because I could be the fitting model, I could be the showroom model, or I could work with the marketing director, or I was the Girl Friday for the front office. And then I was the assistant to the designer. So I got in on fabrics, and I got in on a whole lot of interesting things. That was the part of the business that I liked.
And we have cool pictures of you from that time.
Era, probably.
Yeah. And I got a lot of hats. Hats were
I
apparently big
brought home the
at that
craziest
time.
hats for you.
Yeah.
Different samples I would bring home to Rich, and he'd wear them. He was quite a character.
That was
He
fun.
wore interesting things.
Now, you weren't driving the metro to Los Angeles.
No, my dad insisted that I drive their brand new yellow Chevy Impala, I think it was.
Yeah. The Canary.
The Canary.
You've always named cars, and that was the Canary.
That was the Canary. And that other car of mine was the Metro, we called it. And my mom said, Tom, why in the world are you letting her drive our brand new car that we drove off the showroom floor to Los Angeles? Well, she needs a reliable car. And
that was probably the only brand new car they ever bought, isn't it?
I think maybe that 57 Ford we bought in Rexburg.
Oh.
That might have been from a dealership. Otherwise, I don't know where the cars came from.
Anyway, so that was a big car.
That was a big car.
In a lot of traffic. Of course, the traffic wasn't the same as
no, but there was
today, but
there
there's
was
still plenty of traffic.
There was traffic. So I just figured out how. At first, I thought for the first 2 weeks, I'm going to quit. I am not driving in this traffic. It's just too heavy. It doesn't go fast. You get jammed up. And anyway, after about 2 weeks, I got into the rhythm because commuting is a mindset. And you just have to get into it, understand where the slowdowns are going to be, how it's going to go. You will eventually get there. Just relax. Once I got over that, I just loved it. It was a good thing for me.
So I don't recall, but you were there for a couple of years.
At least a couple years.
Why did you leave?
I wanted to go I wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to BYU.
Okay.
And I thought, well, if I don't do this now, I'm going to just sort of get stuck in this, and I'm never going to really go to university. And I thought I just wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So I did.
Now, just kind of backtracking a little, you liked the beach.
I love the beach. But actually, I didn't love the beach until I went with boyfriends. Mostly my good old faithful, really good boyfriend. I always call him just such a good boyfriend, John Penfield. I would go to the beach with him. But as far as like you going to the beach and mom and daddy going to the beach, we were always in Idaho. We weren't home in the summers.
Oh, that's
so
right.
Until I grew up, I didn't become a beach bum like I am now. And then I raised my kids at the beach. We always took our kids to the beach. And then as they grew up, they brought their families and we all went to the beach.
And in fact, that's why you're at my house, is because you're getting ready to go to the beach.
That's exactly why I'm here. All these years, 53 years later, our wedding anniversary was, a couple days ago. And they got the beach bug in them. And so now that's where we that's our happy place.
Yeah. Even though that part of California, we used to always go to Santa Monica Beach. Cold water.
Oh,
it's not a tropical beach by any stretch, and it always has overcast, and then people fry. Luckily, you always tanned.
So I did pretty well.
Very
I was
good
careful.
tanning skin.
Yeah. Well, the reason we went to Santa Monica is that was the quickest way to get to the beach from mom and daddy's house.
Yeah.
And we could all stay there. We had 5 or 6 kids, 7 kids on the family room floor. We just filled up that house.
Yeah. Like later when your kids were born.
Yeah, when my kids were with us.
Okay, so now you're about to go to college.
Right. I applied to BYU.
See, now I'm impressed. You were accepted at BYU. You must have been a good student. I've never heard anything really about your studenthood or whatever it would be.
Well,
but you must have been good.
It wasn't quite as hard to get into BYU Provo in those days. Not like it is now, but still, I had to qualify.
That's pretty impressive.
I did well enough.
Yeah.
So I went up there in January of 1970, and once again, my dad, he was so cool. He said, "I think you should take the T-Bird. I'll give you this car, his turquoise." What year was that?
Another turquoise.
Daddy liked
two
turquoise
cars.
Two. I don't know how that all happened. Anyway, so he said, I'll give you this car to take. And so I drove myself up to BYU, all the way from Los Angeles to Provo. And
with a map in your hand.
Yeah, a paper map, and I drove up there. I was fortunate in the housing unit where I lived, and I made my lifetime friend Sherry Reamond at that spot. There were 6 girls in one apartment, 3 bedrooms, 2 girls in an apartment, and that's how it worked. Well, 2 of the girls had a big fight over a boy, and one left. So that left a vacancy in the middle of the year. And I was coming in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
I took that spot, and it was just the right spot for me. It
Right.
was
So you didn't know these girls at
from
all.
anybody. I had no idea who they were.
Yeah.
I did have a couple of friends that I'd met in Southern California that I knew were going to be up there. So I'm thinking, well, these guys say this is going to, we'll be your friends. It'll be okay.
And that was off campus. It wasn't student housing.
No, it was approved BYU housing, but it was an apartment complex.
So and that's the way BYU works. You have to be in approved housing.
Right. So I was able to take this vacancy over,
Yeah.
this contract. So I got there, and here I was.
Now I remember a picture of you with snow skis. So did you ever go snow skiing?
I did, and I wasn't really prepared for cold weather. I was a California girl, so I didn't have the right shoes. I'm always cold, but you have to ski. So I got some skis, and I took some lessons up at Sundance, and it was kind of spring skiing by that time.
Uh-huh.
It was just sheer ice. It was the worst place to learn how to ski, and I was so scared. You get off the chairlift, and you're supposed to lean forward and then just ski along. I was so scared I'd go like this, and then I'd fall flat on my back, and they'd have to turn off the chairlift to get me out of the way. It was so embarrassing. Once again, I figured out I'm not good at that, so let's give that up. I tried a few times, and then my pants were too tight, and I couldn't breathe, and my feet were freezing, and I just said, I don't think I'm going to ski. So that was okay. But it was during that era, that semester, David, my soon-to-be husband, David Allen Nelson, he was in the same apartment complex. All the girls were over here in 3 or 4 buildings, and he was over here in the men's side. And we had the opportunity to go to a dance for the ward, and you had to pay your budget. It was like $3 a year.
So you're in the same ward.
Same ward.
Okay. Which there's a lot of wards. At
Oh,
BYU,
lots
so-
and lots of
Okay,
wards.
great.
He happened to be, and fortunately, this apartment complex was for older students. It wasn't a bunch of freshmen and stuff. These were like for older seniors and maybe some juniors. So the core people were older, which was good because I was older.
Yeah.
We went to this
Older meaning like 22 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right. I wasn't 18
Yeah.
or 19. We were a little bit older than that. So I had a date with a fellow that was very serious about me, and I wasn't that serious about him. But fortunately, he got the flu, and he had to cancel. He was commuting from Washington, D.C. to date me.
Wow.
Oh, it was wild. I did have some good romances, I must admit. But anyway, he came down with the flu and stayed with his mother in Salt Lake, and I thought, well, I'm free tonight. I think I'll go to the ward dinner dance. And it was a big spaghetti dinner. It was just nothing. It was just a social. So I went, and I met David Nelson. But I thought he was a different David Nelson that my roommates had talked about. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I know who this guy is. It wasn't the guy who I thought it was at all. And then when he came to pick me up on one of our first dates, this sweet little roommate of mine, she came back to tell me, well, your date's here, David's here.
Whoever that guy is.
She said, but he's not David Nelson. I know David Nelson, and that's not him.
Oh, that's funny.
I think he's an imposter. Who is he really? And this girl is just coming unglued. And anyway, there was another David Nelson that everybody thought very highly of. Thank heavens, because I thought it was my David.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Anyway, so we started dating, and we knew each other for 4 months, and then we got married. And that was 53 years ago.
Now, did you think that was anywhere a possibility in that you had done a lot of dating and a lot of long-term kind of
Yeah.
things? Did you ever think, oh, I might meet a guy and 4 months later be married?
No, I never dreamed it would be so quick. But I also hadn't had enough experience in life and with relationships. And when you know something's right, and you have confidence in yourself at that stage, it didn't seem rushed at all. It seemed just like the most wonderful thing to do. We were thinking about waiting to the end of summer to get married, and then we thought, what are we waiting for? you're going to go home, back up to Provo and work. I'm going to stay here, and we're going to write letters, and we're going to miss each other. Oh, and then the Vietnam War was hanging over our head. Can you be a student? Can you not? You're probably going to get drafted. Well, let's get married, you know? So, sat down on the couch with my mom and my brother right here, my brother Rich, looking at a calendar. This is after he'd proposed and we wanted to be married.
Tell me where he proposed.
On the back porch of 4622 Buffalo, right on the back porch.
Why did he think that that was the thing to do? Because he was at your parents' house, or what?
Well, I think he. Well, remember when he asked me to marry him, he also asked. We were all sitting in the family room. My dad was there over in his black chair, and you were on the couch, and my mom was there, and he asked my dad, "I would like to marry your daughter. Is that okay with you?" And Daddy said, "Well, if you can afford her, you can have her." Okay. Daddy didn't say much about too many things, though. And then he said, "Well, Rich, is it okay with you?" And you said, "Sure." And he asked my mom, and she said, "I think you're a fine young man. Yes, I don't see any reason not to. So let's get the calendar out." Right there. You know, Mom always had a
it's
calendar.
always right there.
Flipped open the calendar, and Mom planned on flipping July, August, September, October. And he said, "Oh, no. Let's look at July." Well, it was already July. So 2 weeks later, we got married. It was just amazing, and we got married in the Los Angeles Temple, and it turned out to just be absolutely beautiful. And we had a wedding reception in Mom and Daddy's backyard, and word of mouth, we invited people to come, and it was a huge success, and we got married.
Now, at this time, David already had a bachelor's.
Yes, he had already graduated.
So did you continue school for... How long did you continue in school?
Well, the foolish thing.
Well, wait a minute. Where did you live?
We went on our honeymoon and we drove back up to Provo, and then we just had to look for a place, and we moved to Apollo on 2nd North in Provo.
Okay.
David didn't want us to live in a little basement something or other, or an old dilapidated. He said, "No, I want us to live in a nice place." And back in those days, it was rather new.
Yeah.
It was a nice. On the 2nd floor, apartment number 9. So we lived there, but David worked for a full year before he went back to graduate school. We needed to earn money. We didn't want to have student loans and all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to start our family right away. So we kept thinking we were going to have our children soon. Well, we had infertility problems, and so that delayed and delayed and delayed. But as I look back on it now, I can't imagine why in the world I didn't go to school during that time. But I kept thinking, well, I'm going to get pregnant and have a family. So
you were just basically home.
Yeah.
During that period.
Yeah. Oh, I worked at the grocery store and did samples for yogurt, and I worked for Meadow Gold, and I piddle-diddle around, and I don't know. So then David went back and got his master's, business administration master's. We'd been married, that was our 2nd, 3rd year of marriage. So that was great. But I wish now, looking back on it, and I'm sure my mom and dad would have paid for it, I should have gone to school. But I kept thinking, I won't, because I'm going to be having a family.
Yeah.
So that was kind of...
So he worked at Allen's supermarket. Super Save or whatever it was called.
He worked there for many, many years. He supported himself all through college.
Because that was his uncle's store.
It was kind of a family business of his mother's brothers.
So then he graduates. Then what do you do?
Then we took an opportunity with Procter & Gamble. They offered him a job.
So he did an interview with Procter & Gamble. They came to the campus or something.
Yep.
And they said, "Hey, this may work for you. So we're going to offer you this job." And so he took that job with Procter & Gamble. He took that job.
Plus, he had done really well in school. He graduated number 1 in his class. And they were thinking, man, this guy must be pretty sharp.
Yeah.
Which he was.
Yeah.
And so they came and packed us up in the big Mayflower moving van that moved us all over the country for many, many years. And they packed us up and moved us up to Boise, Idaho. And we lived there for a year. And we loved living in Boise. That was a real good place for us.
Yeah.
And then he got a promotion, and then we went to Denver. Then got another promotion. We went to Minnesota for a few years. And then we came back to Denver. And then we came back to Utah.
This is all Procter & Gamble.
You know, when we were back east, or in the Midwest, he switched from Procter & Gamble to Johnson & Johnson Baby Products.
Yeah, so
Kind of in the same
big
business.
corporate businesses.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And then we moved back, and then we went to Bountiful, and well, we had Mark in Denver. We moved, and I was like 8 months pregnant. Had to get a new doctor, have a baby, and move. Boom, 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 boom. We went to Minnesota, stayed there for about 3 years. Scott was born there. Then we came back, and then we moved to Bountiful, and that's where Craig and Dana were born when we lived there.
So you have this period of infertility. Was that difficult?
Oh, that was the worst thing in the world. All the hard things I've been through in my life, and I've had a lot of challenges. Infertility was the worst one. It's just so frustrating. You want something that's so natural and what everybody wants to do. And unfortunately, where we lived, those first 3 years in Provo, I mean, everybody got married, and 10, 11 months later, they had a baby. Everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, once again, I'm not fitting in. This is not good.
Yeah.
This is brutal. And then we finally had Mark. Minor fertility drugs kind of stuff. Back then they didn't do a lot of stuff. Got to have him. And then Scott came along, and then we had a big gap. And then we had, then I got Guillain-Barré, which was, paralyzed me for many months and had problems for years. Then I was pregnant with Craig when Dana was being born. And so I ended up having 2 little babies. I couldn't walk, I couldn't drive. And then we had Gina come and live with us for several years to help me.
So the backstory of that is that after Scott was born, you thought, I still have fertility problems.
Right.
And I'm not going to have another baby. So I'm going to pursue adoption. Is that
After a while, yes.
something like that?
Yes, that is what we were pursuing. Absolutely.
And so then you're pursuing that, and in the midst of that, you get Guillain-Barré and you get pregnant.
With Craig,
Yeah.
as we're working on Dana. But usually back in those days, you would work through social services in the church.
Yeah.
But because we had 2 children already, they wouldn't even talk to us. Because why do you think you have a good family already? Just be happy with that.
Yeah.
But we knew that there was more, but we just didn't know how it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we were led to an attorney in Salt Lake, David Young actually, and he looked at us like, he was referred to us by another friend, and anyway, it turned out he was amazing. He had file drawers full of people's applications. Please think of us when a baby is available. Please, please, please. He said, this isn't likely that this is going to happen, but he took an interest in us. And before you know it, our Dana was born, and we knew she was ours. And in between times, no, that was another time I was going to say. I had an ectopic pregnancy another time when I almost died. And I felt that was our Dana. And I just couldn't get her here. So, she was amazing. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. So here I am, pregnant, with this big, huge 10-pound baby. And I was just barely starting to get out of a wheelchair and could kind of walk a little bit. And then I have my Dana, who's like 7 months old, who Jean is taking care of because I can't. And I can't take care of my big boys because I can't. It was kind of a cool bonding time, though, because I couldn't do anything. I would just get in bed and deal with Guillain-Barré and have my baby with me, my baby Dana.
Yeah.
And I could be busy doing silly things. Like raising the other kids, taking them to school. I don't know. So.
And you really don't know how you got Guillain-Barré, do you? Oh no, it was a swine flu shot.
It was a flu shot that I got back in Minnesota. and it just was in my system, and it was kind of like the perfect storm, and all these things came together, and then I just.
So not everybody knows what this is.
Oh, what is Guillain-Barré?
So tell us what the symptoms for you were, and what people go through. Sometimes iron lung kind of issues.
It can be an iron lung. It can be death. It can be paralysis of your face. It can. What happened to me is I started having this terrible pain in my back. I thought, what in the world? And I went to the chiropractor. I did all sorts of things, and then my hands started feeling a little weak. And one day I was just standing in the middle of the family room, and I just fell to the floor. It's like I had no control. My muscles were so weak. This virus eats away the myelin sheathing on your nerves, and so the nerves don't work. They don't communicate. So they call it a paralysis, but basically it's a weakness because it won't work. And so I couldn't walk. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't. It was just terrible.
And that progresses to that point, and either it continues to progress and you can't breathe, which people end up in iron lungs.
Right.
Or you turn the corner and start improving.
And I did after several months start to turn the corner. And fortunately, they were concerned about delivering Craig because I had Guillain-Barré, and they were concerned about my lungs and if I would be able to breathe and if it would kick me into a spiral problem.
Yeah.
So that was kind of tricky, but I was blessed, and I was limited what I could do for many years, but the first year was brutal. And then we moved to Utah. We moved from Utah when Craig was 4 months old and Dana was turning 1, and we moved to Utah. We moved to Colorado. Amongst all of that chaos.
Now, just for a little insert there.
Yeah,
how did Gina show up?
Gina was my friend's daughter, who we knew in Colorado. They moved back to Southern California in Ridgecrest, out in the desert, and she was struggling. Gina was struggling. She had a hard childhood and a hard family, and I just loved her. I had taught her how to drive when we lived in Colorado. I was friends with her mother, and I just felt like, well, our mom was there helping me, recognizing I can't stay. This is not a temporary problem. It's not like, oh, you had a baby, or oh, you had the flu. This is really serious. I need to go home and take care of Tom. And what can we do? How can we figure this out? So
how did that thought come for Gina?
It just came when we decided we needed help. All I could think about was Gina. She needed us.
And she had graduated.
I needed somebody, but she needed us.
She had graduated?
Yes, she had graduated from high school, just barely, and she was struggling, and she had a very complicated blended family there and people, and it was a very negative place for her to be.
Yeah.
And it just dawned on me, I thought, we need to ask Gina. And so I talked to David and I talked to my mom, and I said, well, what do you think? Well, if you feel that strongly about it, let's call her up. We did, and she lived with us for several years. She moved to Colorado with us. She helped me with the baby, with Kate, or not Kate, but Dana especially, because I couldn't hold her. I couldn't walk around with her. She would bring her to me.
Yeah.
She was an angel. She just saved us. So she came. I think she lived with us for like 4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
In Utah, and then we moved to Colorado, and then she went back and wished she'd never gone. And we told her we'd send her to college and all this, but her dad put the pressure on her to come back to Ridgecrest. This is where you belong. And then her life just went to pot after that. Took many years to kind of come out of some bad choices with bad husbands and stepkids. Oh, you won't believe what she's been through. But anyway, she was an answer to our prayers.
Yeah.
She was just what we needed.
So, just to fill in a little gaps, so between Boise and Denver and Minnesota, are there any events during those places that you wanted to talk about?
Well, something really big did happen. David served his mission in the Netherlands, in Holland, and he wanted to take me on a trip to introduce me to these people and just do
To
something.
Holland.
To Holland. Just to do something amazing and wonderful. So we went. Well, while I was there, I didn't realize I was pregnant, and I had an ectopic pregnancy, which is a pregnancy in the fallopian tube. And I had no idea. So we get there, and it's a Sunday. We are at church. All of a sudden, this pregnancy ruptures, and usually, you die. If you're not in the hospital or close to it, this is really, really serious. So I recognized something had happened to me. I was in shock. So I had this kid take me to a classroom, and I laid on the floor. And then David recognized, I think he was bearing his testimony at the time or something. I mean, it was just bizarre. He came in there, and I was on the floor. It was serious. We knew it was serious. So David gave me a priesthood blessing that I would be able to manage whatever this. Well, we didn't know what we were dealing with at the time. We just knew something really drastic had happened. Beautiful priesthood blessing that I would be able to manage this and to be calm, and that I would get the best medical care. And so we went back to the house and thought, well, we need to go to a clinic. We need to do something. So we went and sat in a waiting room at a doctor's office or a clinic or something for emergencies. And we both looked at each other and said, we shouldn't be here. This isn't where you need to be taken care of. We need to wait till you get home to America. And we left. And that was bold, thinking this woman could just die any minute. But anyway, looking back on it, when this pregnancy had exploded, basically. Ruptured, that's the right word, had ruptured. When I was blessed, it was like a balloon went around all of this issue, all of this.
Like protecting you.
Just holding it all together to protect my body from it. And I didn't bleed anymore. I was uncomfortable. I knew something was going on. But we got on a train and went to Paris. And came back, finished up our trip, came home, went to the hospital.
Oh, so you finished your trip.
Yeah, we finished my trip because we knew I shouldn't get cared for there.
Now, but when you went to the doctor, they knew what had happened?
Yes, and we had surgery the next morning, and he said he'd never seen anything like that. The blood went all over the ceiling when they opened me up because...
At home?
In Denver.
What I'm saying is when you were when you were in Holland, did the doctors know what had happened?
No, they didn't know because we left.
Okay, so...
We just knew once we don't want to get started here. This is not the right place.
Yeah.
And that was kind of gutsy to do that because...
That's what I'm thinking.
You're thinking, but we felt so calm about it and felt so calm about the blessing. No, this is what we need to do. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay till I get home.
Yeah.
And I was. And then my doctor, my surgeon who I had babies with and all sorts of stuff, he said, I have never seen anything like that. The way that this had been protected and in this balloon kind of condition, he said, I tried into, and it just blew up the whole operating room with blood all over the ceiling and the floor, and this pressure had just been waiting to be opened and to give me surgery and help me get better.
Wow.
So that was quite a miraculous experience. And then, so I dealt with that and got over that, and that was amazing.
Wow. And at that time you were living where?
We were living in Denver then.
Okay.
So.
Wow. Okay.
And then we moved to Bountiful.
Yeah.
And then we went on with our life for
anything exciting in those other places that you lived that you want to talk about?
We made some great friends in Minnesota. It was a good place to be. We liked that. Made a difference in the church. It was not a lot of us, but we came and made a difference. And as far as the church goes, we were all in. We decided that early on in our marriage. We're not going to go this way and that way and think about it. What should we do? We decided, no, we have testimonies of the gospel. This is how we want to do it. We're all in. So we tend to go places early and we stay late. We help set up, we help take down, that kind of commitment. So that's been a part of how we have chosen to live our lives.
Now, somewhere along this journey, David changes employment.
Oh,
and
yes.
leaves Johnson and
he
Johnson.
He left Procter and Gamble and Johnson, and then that Johnson and Johnson wanted us to move to New Jersey,
Oh.
and David says, I don't want to go to New Jersey, and maybe this big corporate life really isn't for me. I'll let him explain all that stuff on his interview, but. So he knew somebody that did something, and he was offered a job in Denver. So we went back to Colorado. And that didn't turn out to be very good at all. You know, you expect people to be honest and straightforward and integrity, but we found that most people don't have those qualities.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we've learned that a lot, and that's messed up our lives in many times.
But part of what it did change was then he was home more. He was working from home mostly,
Well, it wasn't
wasn't
the
he?
being away from home that was the issue. It was, he just didn't like big corporate stuff.
Yeah. I just meant after he left, wasn't he home? Wasn't his office at home mostly?
Oh, well, that kind of came later. That yeah, our business life is a little muddy. Hard to explain.
So then, Ian, we'll let David explain that.
Okay.
If he wants to.
He could tell you all about that.
Okay, and so now, did you feel like Denver was your home?
We liked Denver, but then we got an opportunity to move to Salt Lake. And we thought, this is better. This will be good. And I think the whole reason we ever went to Utah was so we could adopt Dana. Because they had different rules, different laws.
You had to live in state or something.
And you could use a private attorney.
Oh.
Colorado was very different than that. You had to go through agencies and this and that just never felt comfortable.
So that's when you were in Bountiful.
Yes, then we moved to Bountiful. I did do some foster care, though, when we lived over in Colorado. Infant, brand new baby foster care. There was one set of twins and one of the little twins had a cleft palate. And they wanted me to take care of her, so because, she couldn't suck on a bottle, I'd have a little Dixie cup. And they just knew I just loved this baby to pieces. And she ended up living in our area and remembered me.
Oh.
Because her parents knew who I was.
So
Gave them.
Did you ever think you would adopt any of those foster kids? Or,
No.
Or that was just part of the plan to do a normal adoption?
I was just of service. I just knew I had something to offer.
Okay.
And I wanted to do it. But no, that wasn't the plan. A lot of people, that's how they go through adoption, is they plan to foster and then be able to jump the hoops and be able to keep that child.
Yeah.
But that wasn't ever part of that at that stage of the game.
Okay, so since you mentioned you're all in at the church, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
So, David, it seems, has like forever been a teacher.
Yes.
In one capacity or the other.
And he has loved that.
Yeah, and he's excellent at it.
Yeah, he loves that.
And to this day, he still makes lesson outlines.
He does.
Every week. So, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, David's daily devotionals.
So, a little bit about your history and callings and things that you've enjoyed within the church and experiences.
Well, I've had a variety of things. I was in Young Women's for over 25 years, over the years. 5 years here, 5 years there, I love that. Not too long ago, I was the secretary in our Young Women's organization. But I was old enough to be these girls' mothers that were the leaders. And I fit right in. And I loved it. And they loved me because I wasn't their age. I just sort of held us all together.
Yeah.
So I like that. Actually, what I do like is being the secretary. I was the Relief Society secretary or a counselor for many years, too. And I like that. The ward activity leader for several years.
And de facto for many more years.
And many more years. One thing we did that was really fun is that we started an empty nesters group, and David was the teacher. We had that at our house once a month, and then we'd have a potluck on the other one, and another friend was in charge of the potlucks. And this group of people, we were together for 10 years, or 15 maybe. We still do Christmas dinner for 20 years for this same group. That was very important. Yeah. And that really was an important thing that the people in our ward at that time needed that. And that filled that gap. And it was wonderful for us. So we did that for many, many years. We just, a couple years ago, we had like our 20th or 23rd Christmas dinner party at our house.
Yeah.
So that was important.
See, so this is an interesting thing to me because as far as I can recall, you never cooked at home.
No, I didn't.
And so, but it turns out you're an amazing cook, you're an amazing entertainer, amazing organizer of events, and I know you do a lot of things the way that your mom did, you know, and like you get prepared for these kinds of things.
I do prep early. I start.
You can make a beautiful table. How did all that? How did that become important to you? Because it's not important to a lot of people.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It's not. Well, see, all these other people got these other talents. This was something that I got.
Yeah.
That I developed along the way. And it just felt like it mattered that it happened. I don't necessarily need to work that hard on things and create all this stuff, but I think the end result is worth it.
Yeah.
And then I just enjoy doing it. It wasn't like, oh, this or, but not everybody has that attitude.
Yeah. And to this day, you still have weekly dinners with your family.
Oh, I wouldn't miss that. That is a family tradition that I promote. But everybody's on board. This isn't like I'm pulling teeth. Every Sunday, almost, I bet 95% of the time, all of the kids and grandkids come to our house for a rather elaborate, overdone, I do too much, I'm trying to cut back, dinner. And we have a table that sits 14 comfortably, and I leave it set all week, because I just change the decorations up, and I used to foolishly take it all down, make the table smaller, and then about 2 days later I had to start all over again. I thought, this is nuts. So I am a big believer in gathering on Sundays with your family.
Yeah. And luckily your family is all on board with that.
Yes, and sometimes they have to be somewhere else.
Except Mark is in Utah. He's the only one who doesn't live
He is the only one
by.
that lives away from the family.
So he misses out on that. But
he does.
Okay, so now so any other church experiences that you or callings or
well, one time in Boise when I was being set apart to be in the primary presidency, Bishop Bud Sims announces during this blessing of setting me apart that I was pregnant, and I didn't know it and no one else knew it, and I was with Mark. We all looked at each other and thought, why would he say that? You know, you kind of think, well, maybe he's thinking of somebody else or something. He announced, he knew. Don't you think that's amazing?
Yeah, that is.
So that was the most amazing setting apart experience I've ever had.
Wow.
So I've had some miraculous things happen to me that I survived that I shouldn't have. I had a hysterectomy one time. I was bleeding internally. I almost bled to death, and they just kept putting new blood in and new blood. But then I went into some sort of, it wasn't a coma, it was some sort of strange state, and I couldn't function. And I had to go home in a hospital bed and stay in a bed and have 24-hour care. I could not quite wake up because I'd lost so much blood in my brain. And of course my whole family thought Mom will never wake up. I mean, I was awake, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I acted apparently very strange. That lasted for about a month. Dana had to come from Arizona actually to come and take care of me. David thought he could do it all 24/7. Well, he's trying to work and take care of me. They had charts. What are we going to do? It was scary. And I look, I'm back to normal. But that was scary. So.
Let's quick review your kids and where they
are now?
Where, yeah, or quirks about them growing up and their personalities or whatever. And
well, we kind of had the big boys, which is Mark and Scott. They were only a couple years apart. And so they were these two cute little rowdy boys that were into everything and played every sport and did scouting.
Blonde.
Fair-haired blonde kids. Yeah, towheads.
Sports fanatics.
Yeah, they love sports. and then we had this big gap. And then Craig and Dana came, so they were the little kids, and these were the big boys. And so we had
So
that.
the gap is how big?
I think it's 7 years.
Yeah.
5 years, I think.
But a gap.
But a gap, a 5-year gap, let's call it that. Let's settle on that, okay? Close enough. And David coached every team that they were on, and we sort of supported them in whatever they wanted to do. They were nice kids.
Now, what do you consider each of their strengths?
Oh, wow. Let me think.
Like when I say Mark,
Like, how
when I
do you-
say Mark to you, Mark's
What-
personality, what jumps to mind?
He has a lot of the same traits of his dad as far as business things go. How to develop relationships, how to manage and sell and have clients and make things happen, and very committed.
Uh-huh.
He does that really, really well. He's a super dad.
Yeah.
He's very supportive of his kids. So he's kind of like that. He was a little shy when he was younger. Then he blossomed and turned out to this. I think he was a 4-letter letterman, or 4-sport
Yeah.
letterman in high school. I mean, 4. That's unheard of in a big city. Little towns that happens often, but not in a big city. And then Scott, he scared us half to death twice when he was first born. This is before they could tell if the baby's lungs were developed enough to be born. Hyaline membrane disease, they called it then. So he was this great big 8.5-pound healthy looking baby who was dying because his lungs were stuck together. They wouldn't open and close. And so he was in intensive care. They brought him, I was in one hospital, and they brought him in a big portable incubator to go in an ambulance for me to touch him, put my hand in on him. Because they assumed I'd never see him alive.
Yeah.
That would be my only chance to touch him while he's warm. So that's kind of how he started in life. And then he turned out to be this big, strong, healthy kid. And then in high school, he was a good swimmer and a good diver. And then he dives off this board and into an inner tube and breaks his neck and almost dies and is almost paralyzed. So he's given me a run for my money. Those two things. But in the meantime, he was a fabulous kid. He's raising a beautiful family, and you know, and he's committed. He's dedicated. He's in a bishopric right now, and he's just all in,
Yeah.
and it's exciting. And he has our first missionary. Our Jake is our first missionary to go out, and he's in the MTC today,
Yeah.
just right now. And he works really hard too, very dedicated. Big heart, would help anybody.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like Craig. Craig has a huge heart. He is compassionate. He looks for ways to help people, and he just jumps in and does it. He works well with his dad. They think the same. They're going to move a piano, they're going to move a table, a refrigerator. They know exactly how they're going to do it, who's going to turn this way, go that way, can we get it in through that door. They have fun. Actually, all my boys learned to move in. And back in the day when church people helped other church people and neighbors how to move and load trucks, my little boys went with them always.
Yeah.
For years. I mean, they were famous. Oh, if the Nelsons come, we got this handled.
Isn't that one of the reasons he has a pickup?
Yeah, probably. Every family should have somebody have a pickup in it, because I use it sometimes too.
Yeah.
Anyways, so then there's Dana. Dana's just not one of the boys. She's the daughter. We try not to call her the princess because that just seems so ridiculous. But she is just a breath of fresh air. She handles hard things. She has poor health. She has more to do than you can even imagine, and she just does it so beautifully. She's just a trooper.
Yeah.
And raising a really nice family. And so I'm an only daughter. Dana's an only daughter, and her Kate is an only daughter. And so we kind of have to rely on each other because we don't have a bunch of sisters and all this stuff that I'm always so jealous of everybody else has got. And then I look around and I think, oh, we don't need them. And then I have my daughter-in-laws, and then I have my Kate and my Dana, and it's like, we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all right.
Cool.
So those are our four kids.
So then you become empty nesters.
Yeah, all of a sudden then all of a sudden it just sort of happened. And that's been fun too. Because fortunately, I hardly noticed it because our 3/4 of our family live close to us.
Yeah.
So I see them. So I hardly noticed that they left.
Yeah.
So, and over the years, when we lived in our big house, Dana came home with Ryan, her husband, and Jordan, and pregnant with Kate. She had the baby. So we had one bedroom was a nursery, one bedroom was Jordan's, and then another suite was for Ryan and Dana. So they came home. And then Craig left home for a while, and then he came back, and then he took over his old room in the front of the house. So we've had fun.
Yeah.
They come, they go, they're back, they're not. So
Describe I need to jump around here a little bit.
yeah, keep me on track.
Some of it overflows into other places.
I know I've been kind of messing us up.
So oh no, you're doing wonderfully. Describe the relationship with your mom.
Great relationship. But as a kid growing up, I saw other girls and their mothers, they were just close in a different way than we were. My mom, I adored my mom. I respected her. She was amazing. But until I was, maybe married, actually, that's when we really became good friends.
Yeah.
We weren't distant before, but it just wasn't like this family with girls
Like,
and
let's go
everybody's
out
chatty,
shopping.
let's go shopping. And that's not what my mom wanted to do. And actually what I've always enjoyed doing is helping. We would go down and help my mom. We show up. You'd have your clipboard, we'd have our list, and we would go work. I love that.
Yeah.
I didn't need to go to lunch. I still did do those kind of things, but my mom wasn't interested. So, but she always had my back. She was always that safety net in my life. I miss my mom. But as far as, I would tell my mom everything, and we stay up all night and visit when I was a teenager and stuff. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't me, apparently, and maybe it wasn't Mom, but we had a good relationship, but it wasn't close until probably after I got married.
Yeah. So then pretty much every summer you would end up going to California.
We go down and see Mom and Daddy.
And then even later on you would make 2 or 3 or 4 trips a year.
Oh,
there.
later when Mom was older.
Yeah.
I would go there for the last 2 or 3 years. I would go every 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And maybe skip a couple months, but then it was often. Mom needed that.
Yeah.
And then you were taking care of Daddy during part of that time. That's probably what really got me started on it, going really often. She would schedule her doctor's appointments when I was going to come to town. We'd have a list, who we need to see, what do we need to do. I need to cut her hair. We had a list, and I loved it.
So give a little background of how that occurred. So Mom had been, driving cars for 50 years for budget and
Yep.
whatever, and then Dad started developing Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it started to fail.
And I think at least for me, there was many years when she covered for him so much
Yes.
that you didn't really realize what was going on with him.
Well, and also because Daddy was so reserved,
Wasn't
he
much
didn't
different.
change a lot. He didn't go from gregarious and involved and talk to me. He was never like that.
Yeah.
So when he lost that ability, we didn't really notice. And then Mom just compensated to make him comfortable. For years, I don't think we had a clue about how serious it was.
Yeah.
Frustrating a little bit. Mom wasn't secretive about it, but she wasn't complaining about it either.
Now, and I was obviously gone by that point as well. So they were just the two of them home, and they made great efforts to come see all of their kids.
Oh, didn't they do a great job of
They
that?
did, and they made great efforts for us to go on trips. So we'll watch your kids while you go somewhere.
Always.
So it was when Dana got married that there was a major shift that
Right.
happened. Tell us about that.
Well, Dana got married about I don't know 20 years ago now maybe, and Mom she said, no matter what, I'm coming to this wedding. And I don't know, she said over my dead body or something, and that turned out to be more true than not. But and she needed to lead Daddy home. He could not be. So did you go or did Bill go? At the beginning.
Bill went.
Okay, so Mom asked Bill and Debbie to come and stay with Daddy while she flew up and came to Denver to come to Dana's wedding.
I think there was 2 weddings, and Bill stayed with Dad for the first one,
Okay.
and I stayed with him for Dana's.
Oh,
That's when
we had a wedding a month apart. Scott and Tammy got married. Oh, you're right. I forgot about that.
And so that's when
part.
Bill said, "Hey, Dad is really hard to take care of."
He was so surprised. He was so surprised.
Anyway, okay,
Oh.
we digress.
Yeah. Okay. So you went to take care of Daddy
Yeah.
while Mom came to Dana and Ryan's wedding,
Yeah.
and because she was so committed to taking care of Daddy, she wasn't taking care of herself. She had pneumonia, and she just thought, "Oh, I'm doing better every day," and she wasn't. I can breathe. I'm doing fine. Well, she got on the plane. You went and stayed with Daddy. Mom came up to us, and I could tell, "Mom, you are seriously ill." And she said, "Oh no, I'm fine." And I said, "Mom, you're not fine. This isn't going well."
This was the first day she got there.
This was the first day she got there, and then we had the rehearsal dinner to go to, and she couldn't go. And you can imagine Mom not going to something like that. And then we had another couple days. Well, anyway, the morning of the wedding, I woke David up early. I said, "David, take my mom to the hospital. She can't make it. She can't do this. I know she said no matter what, I'm going to go to that ceiling and I want to be there." I said, and anyway, he looked at me, he said, "Are you sure we can't wait until later in the day?" I said, No, I know what's happening. This is not right." And anyway, so he said, "Okay." So he got up and got showered, and I went in and I said, "Mom, David's going to take you to the hospital. You need to get dressed." She just looked at me and sobbed, and she said, "I know." So this is the morning my daughter's getting married. Can you believe this? So I calmed down. I thought, no, I know this is what needs to happen. David went to the hospital. She had double pneumonia. They immediately put her on life support. It was that bad. But she just put all this off because she needed to take care of Dad at home. And she just neglected herself. And years before, maybe she could have gotten better on her own. But she was getting old. This was serious business. So David took her to the hospital. And then we went to the temple and Dana was sealed. And then Dana and Ryan, in their wedding clothes, went to the hospital. We took pictures of Mom in bed, all hooked up, and there they were. And then she stayed in the hospital for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, you need to get that. Or a month, I don't know how long it was. And you stayed with Daddy and recognized, I can't stay here forever. And Daddy is really in bad shape. Recognizing this Mom can't do this anymore. And then you took Daddy home with you. And then Mom stayed with us longer and longer till she could recover and get better. I don't know, was she there 2 months maybe?
At least 2 months, I think.
At least, maybe 3.
So you made a space for her downstairs in your house.
Yes.
At the main floor of your house that had oxygen and
the whole 9
all that.
yards. Yep. We were in our big house. We turned the study into, it used to be a music room. We took out the piano and gave that away and got a hospital bed, and that's how Mom was for about 3 months. And then she finally felt good enough, and I was comfortable, so I drove her home. And Daddy never came home again. He couldn't, and
Yeah.
Mom couldn't begin to think she could take care of him again. And she just knew that if Daddy stayed close by, she would still have that pressure to be there all the time. And she said, I just can't do it. I just don't have it in me anymore to do it. And then you and Carolyn and your family said, we'll take care of Dad. And then he stayed at your house for months, maybe longer. And then he would go to the nursing home or the care facility, I don't know what they called it. But he could go over for lunch and spend part of the day and then come home to your house. It was really close.
Yeah.
And then as things progressed, then he needed to stay there longer. And that's how that all worked out, which was a blessing for Mom and a blessing for Dad.
Yeah. So then he passed away in hurricane.
Right.
And was taken to California to be buried.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful service.
And you came up with Mom. I think the day he died, you went home. He died right after you were here.
That was Bill.
Oh, that was Bill.
That was Bill.
Well, anyway, Mom got to see him.
Yes,
right
at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had her goodbyes and felt comfortable with that. And then I think they were on the highway going south past St. George even. Do you need to come back? And our practical mom, she said, no, I don't think so. I've already had my goodbyes and I'm comfortable with that. And Bill took her home.
Yeah. And so, and part of mentioning that, just besides it's an interesting way for things to work out, but at that point, you started going.
Oh, then I started
often.
going regularly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's when I didn't go every 3 or 4 months. I would go every 6 or 8 weeks.
And that was kind of the highlight of her thing that as soon as you left, she would start on a new list of what you're going to do the next time.
When you come next time.
Yeah.
She got real comfortable with that, and she liked it.
Yeah.
And we had a good time together.
So then she lived another.
She was almost 98, a week short of being 98.
I don't remember how many more years. But
Was it like
she
another 10?
I thought she would die from pneumonia at some point again. But anyway, she was sharp and that anyway, and you did a great job.
Well, I was grateful to do it. She'd been so good to me.
And she never wanted to leave home.
No.
And you made that possible.
Because I went often enough that she felt, we can do this.
Yeah.
This is what I'd like to do.
So now you're the oldest of the family.
I am the matriarch.
You're the matriarch.
Well, we won't focus on the oldest. We'll focus on
the wisest.
Well, maybe not the wisest. Let's go back to the oldest.
Okay.
That is definitely true. That is true.
So, that now you have grandkids.
I have 11 grandsons and one granddaughter.
And yeah.
How do you like that?
So that's fantastic, and you stay in close touch with all of them, and that's a wonderful thing as well.
Right.
David is not working full time anymore. And
I think he's calling it retired now.
Yeah,
just recently.
Really?
I think he
he's
said
called
that.
It that.
But for years he wasn't working, but he didn't call it retired. I don't know. You have to ask him about that. But
anyway, you still make efforts to go to on trips and things, and like you're going to the beach, and those are all good things. And so now bring us up to date in the last few years, the last 10 years.
The last 10.
So this is going back to your first bout.
Oh, 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Is this what we're talking about?
Yeah. Was it 10 years
actually,
ago?
Talking about Mom and Daddy and the 4622 Buffalo, that's where I discovered a lump on Halloween Day, October 31st, down in California, in my little pink and blue bathroom. I can visualize this. And I thought, there's something wrong. And I'd had mammograms every year. But of course, I have to do everything a little special.
Yeah.
This was lobular, not ductal. The common is ductal. Everybody gets that. They do fine. Mine was different. So I dealt with that, and I I didn't tell my family until after Christmas. I could not ruin the holidays. I told David and I told my dear friend Sherry. And then I had many tests and I had many things, and I was getting prepared to have a double mastectomy with reconstructive surgery and then hormone therapy for 5 years. So I did all that and I was very comfortable. You know, once I get comfortable in a decision, even though somebody else wouldn't make that decision, I had girlfriends say, how could you not tell everybody? You needed their support and all that. I said, you know, I didn't need to hold their hand. I wasn't up to it. I didn't want to ruin Christmas. I didn't want to ruin Thanksgiving. And the first week in January, when all that was over and I could finally get in to do what I needed to do, I was comfortable with it. They said, how could you do that? I said, well, that's what I needed for me.
Yeah.
So then I did hormone therapy for 5 years, and then that's what they recommend. But then I did it for another 4 after that because I didn't have a lot of problems with it and I was doing great. Blood work looked good. Everything looked just great. So I'm thinking, hey, I've had a lot of awful things happen to me in my life. Maybe I'm cruising now. Maybe the bad stuff's over. I can maybe not feel stressed, not feel frustrated, not be inadequate. I thought, oh, this is going to be good. So then I discover a lump on my neck, and I'd had a cold, and I thought, well, this is probably just a swollen gland, because that happens. You know, you get sick and you have bumps and stuff. And I thought, no. I waited a week, and I thought, no, I better pop in and see the doctor and see what he says. So he looked at it and said, well, that's probably what it is. It's a swollen gland. We'll watch it. And then I sat there and I said, I'm really not that comfortable with that. He said, well, I'm really not either. Let's have you do an ultrasound tonight. So that's how we got started. And then it was one test after another. Boom, boom, boom. Everything was fast. PET scans, CT scans, all this. And then I had a big biopsy done on my neck. And then, well, it got topsy-turvy. They assumed that it would be hormone positive, which I had before, which is common. Not a great thing to have happen to you, but not the end of the world. And I would be able to treat that and do pretty well for several years. So we had a big meeting how that was all going to work. Calls me the next day and says, we assumed all wrong. 95% of the time we would be right. In your case, we were wrong. This has mutated to triple negative breast cancer in your lymph nodes. Without any kind of therapy at all, you probably have 12 months to live, and that's it. So I said, well, what can I do? But I didn't want to do traditional chemo and be sick and I just didn't want to go that route.
Yeah.
So then we did this, we did that, and it was just chaotic. So then my oncologist said, I know you want to do something where you can have some sort of quality of life. I have a friend who is it's like clinical trials, research, that big world of pharmaceutical people checking out, making new drugs. So I said, I'm interested in this one. But I hadn't been. They had suggested, my first oncologist had suggested typical chemo, which goes all through your body all the time. They've been using the same kind of thing for years. A lot of people are so sick, it's horrible. And then another trial that you might get the placebo or not. I said, I'm not taking a chance. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do the thing. So she got to thinking about it, and she called around, and she talked to the doctor that runs this world-renowned clinic, research clinic. And anyway, she said, I made an appointment for you to talk to him. And then it finally felt good. I had to feel good about this, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I was accepted into the study, and for about the last 5 months, I have been doing a targeted chemotherapy. So the chemo's in your body, but it doesn't attach to the tumor until it arrives at it. So it's targeted. It's not just flowing everywhere.
Killing everything in the
Killing
body.
everything
Yeah.
in its path. So I've been doing that for 5 months. My PET scans are looking good. Some things have stayed the same. One little thing maybe got us a little bit smaller. Another one just grew a little bit. This particular cancer is extremely aggressive. I mean aggressive. And the only thing, radiation, all these other things, they don't touch this. They don't even bother because it's just that aggressive and that bad. So far, I'm holding my own. So I'm excited about that. This has gotten, it started off small with a center thing that was kind of soft, and then now it has grown to be much bigger and firmer. And they don't know exactly why this has happened. This is not normal. So this could be just a reaction, or it could be, but I had a PET scan several days before the doctor looked at this. He said, let's go with the science for now. For now, it has not grown, it has not changed. Why it's bigger and why it's doing what it's doing, we don't understand. But the PET scan shows that it's okay. So that's important.
And
But
just
that-
for people who don't know, this is still considered breast cancer because that's
Right.
where its genesis was.
Right.
And you have something in your chest as well.
Yes, I have tumors in my chest too,
And so
by
that's,
my lungs.
but they just consider it an extension of what you had years ago.
Many times when people have breast cancer or any kind of cancer and it metastasizes and it changes and goes somewhere else, it can go to your liver, it can go to your lungs, it can go to your brain, your bones. Cancers go everywhere. And if you really understand about cancer vocabulary, you would call it liver cancer, but it might not really be cancer of the liver. That's where it is. So mine, of course, couldn't just continue to be what it was. It mutated because my body was fighting off this hormone positive thing into a triple negative, which is the worst.
Yeah.
So I'm responding really well.
Yeah.
And why I'm hoarse and sound like this is because this is pressing on my vocal cords. So we're working on this, and we're also working on, they were able to increase my dose a little bit because of the study that seems to be, so I'm up a little bit more. So we're going to just see how I do.
Yeah. And you have apparently good quality of life.
And that was my goal.
Which, if you would have gone the other route, you would have basically been in bed
Yes.
for, whatever.
For till the end.
Anyway,
and I
so
will
that's-
need to do this forever.
Yeah. So that's
This will not ever be cured, but I'm trying to slow it down.
yeah, and it appears to be working. So
And so far so good. I'm real excited.
you're above average.
Yeah, finally I'm above average on something. I'm so glad. You know, when they first, at the beginning days of this, at the beginning of the year, I was concerned. I said, we always go on a family vacation with all of our family. We always just meet at the beach, and it's real. And I said something, and they said, don't plan on it. You probably will be in hospice by summer, and you won't be able to travel. You will be dying.
Yeah.
And here I am. I'm going to the beach.
Yeah.
We're having our family reunion. It's just a little mini one, but still, I'm going, and my side effects are minimal. Hopefully the neuropathy isn't going to be an issue, and they have to cut me back. I mean, it's always tricky, but overall, I am just thrilled that I've got something so aggressive and so serious, but I'm doing so well.
Yeah.
So that's my
You
goal.
are. And you have a great support system.
I do have a great support system, and very understanding one, and not just push. It's like, okay, if you want to have a bad day, that's all right.
Yeah.
No, because sometimes the patient has a lot of pressure to be that cheerleader, and sometimes you just can't be the cheerleader, and it's not fair.
Yeah.
And it's not right, but it's also really, really hard on the family when you get news like this.
Yeah.
For the husband, for the children, for the grandchildren, it's been kind of devastating.
Yeah.
It's just a big adjustment to wrap your mind around. And there's different philosophies about, it's good to know that it's going to happen and you can prepare. Well, I used to think that was really good, but I'm not so sure I like that. I'm beginning to think the people that are really blessed, they have a heart attack one day and they die the next. And they were so surprised. Now that is an easy way to do it. Everybody's in shock, and we didn't have time to prepare. We didn't get to say goodbye. You know what? That is all overrated. This other knowing is brutal emotionally.
I can imagine.
But for the most part, I do okay. I get overwhelmed once in a while,
Yeah.
which of course you can imagine. And other times it's like, no, I'm doing this, I'm fine, and other times I'm a mess. So
And you're allowed to be a mess.
that's the word I like. I'm allowed. I'm allowed to be a mess
Yeah.
and not feel like I have to hide it, or I don't know. I don't hide things very well anyway, as you can tell. That's been one of, it's wonderful to be sensitive. And I love being sensitive because I am. I care deeply. I do. But it prevents you from really saying the kind of things you'd like to say.
Yeah.
It inhibits you. And that's kind of a bummer. But I wouldn't want to be in such control and be, some people can just be in control and others can't.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to know?
Well, on your paper, you wrote some other things.
Oh, yeah, what did I
If you-
write really quick?
So now is your chance to say anything about anything I didn't talk about.
Well, I'll just
Anything you
quickly
just-
look at my notes and I'll just
Oh.
say if this was important or not. Did I mention, I can't even remember what we talked about. Did I mention that my dad was born in New York and my mom was born in Salt Lake City in the same year, 1917? Dad is a convert. He was in his early 20s when he converted to the church. And mom's family, both sides are pioneer stock that came from Nauvoo, crossed the plains, settled southeastern Idaho, and were amazing people. I talked about going up to Rexburg and living in two places at the same time, and how exciting that was, and weird, but I loved it. Where I went to college, wish I would have graduated. That down here you have a question. Anything you wish you would have done differently? I wish I would have realized. We just never thought we could afford 2 students, but I know if I would have mentioned to my folks, I want to continue, they probably would have said, well, just because you got married doesn't mean we're not going to send you to college.
Yeah.
I'm big on that. But because we thought we were going to have our family, we didn't do it. So I'm over that. And we're all in the church and worked in every organization and have helped and moved and all that kind of stuff. On having our Christmas party for over 20, I think it's 25 years now. Anyway, and running our Empty Nesters program. That was us. That
Yeah.
was off the books in the word, but everybody loved it. You said, what's your favorite saying? And Dana gave me the cutest thing that I have on my counter. It's 2 words: choose kindness. It never fails.
Yeah.
That is it. I try to be a kind person in every situation.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, one thing that I did do, that I'm glad I did, and most, Dana says, Mom, I don't know how you ever did that. I never yelled at my kids my whole life. Never, once. I mean, if they're going to run in the street, I might say something. But as far as saying critical things, mean things, just like what a lot of people say to their kids, I wanted to keep their self-esteem intact. I didn't think it was my job to tear them down.
Yeah.
I did not want to do that, and I have done that.
Well, you're a great mom, great wife, great grandma.
Well, I'm trying. But that deciding never to yell, never to say, and I don't mean to say screaming in their face, but some people scream in their faces. You stupid kid, why did you do this? You're no good. You're gonna, I didn't want to go that route. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was beneficial. I didn't think there was any purpose in it. I wanted to build my kids up.
That's why they're all over to your house every Sunday.
Well, maybe there's something to that. Oh, Rich, you picked up on something there that I didn't even think about. And of course, that tradition of trying to make it comfortable, come over, but do what you need to do, no pressure, but it seems to happen, and all that kind of stuff. But choose kindness. My 1 granddaughter and my 11 grandsons, I just love that. It's so fun to say. So many surgeries and so many health problems and just hard things, and never calmness. Seems like a lot of people's lives just so they're kind of just floating along a little bit, And I'm always so envious. Why? Why couldn't I have had a calm life? And then I think, but look what I would have missed out on having wisdom and compassion for people who have problems. I can relate.
Yeah.
I'm not just, and I think it's so funny, some people that have no clue about hard things, they act like they can relate. And I just think, you're trying really hard and you're a really good person, but you don't have a clue. They just, and not with me, but I see it with other people. They want to, but they just have never been through the ringer like I have been, and other people too, to get it.
Yeah.
They don't know what financial problems can mean, and health problems, and infertility, and well, you could just go on and on what the list would be. So I'm supposed to be grateful that I've had a hard life. Some days I'm okay with it because I'm kind of wise and I've been around the block. And other times I think, why did it have to happen to me?
Yeah.
Why couldn't I have had all those other gifts, those talents, those opportunities? Because why not me? And then I get over it. But I think about it every once in a while. Okay, so I think that's it. What do you think we've
words
missed?
of wisdom or advice or things that you?
Well, I kind of covered those about being kind and about
that's true.
about willing to be supportive of people, and I'm inclusive and I'm not judgmental, and I think I came by that naturally. That wasn't hard for me.
Yeah.
So that's see, when I don't think I have any gifts, then I think, well, maybe I do. But they're hard gifts.
Yeah.
And hard-earned gifts. So,
That's right. You pay a price for those gifts.
Anyway, so that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not quite as shy as I was. I'm still insecure. I'm still nervous about a lot of things, but I tend to go forward and figure things out, and there you go.
Well, you're the best sister
I'm the
I
only
could
one.
have.
Now that's a good note to leave on that, Rich. I'm the best one,
And a good friend.
and I love being your friend.
And I love you.
I love you.